Beavers and the dams they build are not always embraced in certain areas. They can create problems with flooding, crops, and other damage.
In 2009, a small team walked into Bridge Creek, a river in the high desert of eastern Oregon, and built 76 fake beaver dams. The river had become so damaged that its water was too warm for steelhead trout to survive. Many experts believed the idea would never work. Some thought a few simple wooden structures could never repair decades of damage. But what started as a bold experiment soon became one of the most surprising river restoration stories ever recorded. Just a few years later, something happened that nobody expected. The water slowly returned. The wetlands began to recover. And most importantly, nature started healing itself. Because just a few years later, water slowly returned. The wetlands began to recover. And most importantly, nature started healing itself. But how did a few wooden posts and branches restore an ecosystem from the verge of collapse? We first need to see what people had overlooked for more than a century, which pushed the river toward disaster. Let's dive in. The dying river. Bridge Creek flows through the high desert of eastern Oregon. It is a small tributary of the John Day River, but it once supported a rich and healthy landscape. Cold water spread across the valley, with willow and cottonwood trees growing along the riverbanks. Fish, birds, and many other animals depended on this peaceful river every day. But over time, everything began to change. The flowing water cut deeper into the land. Instead of spreading across the valley, it carved a deep, narrow trench. The stream rushed through that channel much faster than before, leaving very little water where plants and wildlife needed it most. The river began destroying the very valley that had once kept it alive. The groundwater table dropped lower every year. Willow and cottonwood trees stretched their roots toward the water, but could no longer reach it. Healthy green leaves disappeared, dry branches took their place, and the riverbanks slowly lost the plants that had protected them for generations. And that loss created another problem. The roots had held the soil together. Without them, the banks became weaker, and the sun heated the water more than ever before. The damage did not stop there. Soon, the river became too warm for one of its most important residents. Steelhead trout depended on cool, clean water to survive and raise their young. Bridge Creek had once been an important nursery where young fish could grow safely before moving downstream. But now they face fast-moving water and rising temperatures. Once the water reached about 25 degrees Celsius, survival became extremely difficult. A river that had once protected life was now slowly taking it away. From a distance, Bridge Creek still looked like a healthy river, but beneath the surface, almost every part of the ecosystem was failing. Repairing damage like this usually requires massive engineering projects. Heavy machines move huge amounts of rock. Bridge Creek seemed destined for the same future because the damage stretched across the entire valley, not just one small section. But the real story did not begin in 2009. The river's problems had started more than a century earlier. To understand why Bridge Creek was dying, we first have to meet the small animal that once shaped this entire landscape without machines, concrete, or human hands. Forgotten natural engineers. That animal was the North American beaver, the largest rodent in North America. It had thick brown fur, powerful front teeth that never stopped growing, and a wide, flat tail that helped it swim through rivers and streams. It spent most of its life in fresh water and lived in close family groups. Every year, a pair raised a new generation of young called kits, teaching them the same skills that had shaped rivers for centuries. Before everything changed, the valley told a very different story. Bridge Creek looked very different in those days. Instead of one narrow channel, the water moved through many small braided streams that crossed the valley. Wet meadows stretched across the floodplain, and the soil stayed moist long after the snowmelt had ended. Willow, cottonwood, and other riverside plants grew almost everywhere because the ground held enough water throughout the year. One small animal made all of this possible. They also used those same branches to build strong dams across the stream. Those natural barriers slowed the current, creating quiet ponds where sand and rich soil settled instead of washing away. As the stream bed slowly rose, water spread across the surrounding land instead of cutting deeper into it, keeping plants alive even during the hottest months. That healthy landscape supported far more than beavers alone. Cool pools gave young steelhead trout a safe place to grow. Birds nested in thick trees along the banks, and countless other animals found food, shelter, and clean water in the growing wetlands. One hard-working animal quietly supported an entire ecosystem without anyone noticing. That balance did not last forever. The fur trade created a huge demand for beaver pelts across North America. Trappers removed beavers from rivers on a massive scale, and many colonies disappeared. Water that had once spread across the floodplain rushed through a single channel, carrying away soil that had taken years to build. Human activity added even more pressure. Cattle grazed along the riverbanks and ate young willow and cottonwood before they could mature. Fewer trees meant less food and fewer building materials for the remaining beavers. As plants disappeared, the banks became weaker, and the channel cut even deeper into the valley. One change triggered another, until the entire system began working against itself. The natural engineers were still there, but they no longer had the strength to rebuild what had been lost. And that is when one remarkably simple idea changed the future of Bridge Creek forever. Impossible small solution. In 2009, fisheries scientist Michael Pollack and his colleagues from the NOAA Northwest Fisheries Science Center, the Bureau of Land Management, with an unusual plan. Instead of bringing bulldozers, concrete, and heavy machinery, they carried wooden posts, willow branches, and simple hand tools. They believed the river did not need to be rebuilt from scratch. It only needed a small push to help nature take over again. The idea sounded almost too simple to work, and many people doubted it from the very beginning. And the idea became known as Beaver Dam Analogs, or BDAs. Each structure looked small and ordinary. Workers drove wooden posts into the stream bed and wove fresh branches between them. Water could still pass through the gaps, but it moved much more slowly than before. These were never meant to become permanent dams. They only needed to slow the current enough for the creek to start changing on its own. But many people struggled to believe such a small plan could matter. The team placed 76 of these simple structures across about 3.5 kilometers of Bridge Creek. They carefully chose places where water still flowed and where beavers had once lived. Every post and branch served one purpose: slow the water. Give the stream a chance to reconnect with its floodplain instead of racing through a deep channel. And the project solved more than one challenge. Traditional river restoration often costs millions of dollars and depends on heavy machines. The team hoped this experiment would cost less and allow natural processes to continue long after the workers had gone home. The most important part of the plan had nothing to do with the wood. They acted like temporary helpers. A wider, calmer stream could create better conditions for the true engineers to return and continue building without human hands. Success was far from certain. The creek had changed over many decades, and nobody knew if a few rows of wooden posts could begin turning that damage around. Some people saw a clever experiment. Others expected another failed restoration project that would disappear with the next strong flow. And the team finished their work and stepped away. The quiet creek flowed around every new structure exactly as planned. Everything now depended on whether nature would respond. That silence finally ended when the first beavers discovered what had been waiting for them. Nature takes over. Before the workers returned, the first visitors had already arrived. They were the same animals the project had been waiting for. The beavers found the new wooden structures and treated them as unfinished work instead of something strange. The creek began responding in ways no one expected. The small structures soon started looking like real beaver dams. Water slowed behind them and spread across the stream instead of racing through a single channel. Leaves, sticks, gravel, and rich soil settled naturally in the calmer water. Every small change created the right conditions for the next one, and the creek slowly began repairing itself. The beavers added more branches and repaired places where flowing water had opened small gaps. Their families stayed near the new ponds, and more colonies appeared in parts of Bridge Creek that had remained empty for years. The restoration team had built only the beginning. Nature carried the project much further than anyone expected, and the signs of recovery became impossible to ignore. Groundwater slowly rose beneath the valley. Water reached places that had stayed dry for years. Wet meadows returned and the floodplain began holding water instead of sending it away. Heavy rain no longer rushed straight downstream. The creek spread that water across the land, where the soil stored it like a natural reservoir. The changes soon appeared above the ground as well. Fresh willow and cottonwood shoots pushed through the riverbanks. Green plants covered places that had looked dry and bare. Their growing roots helped hold the soil together, making erosion much weaker than before. Thick branches stretched over the creek again and blocked more sunlight during the hottest months. The cooler shade helped lower water temperatures throughout the summer. The clearest proof of success swam beneath the surface. Steelhead trout once again found deeper pools and slower water where young fish could rest and grow. Cleaner gravel improved places where adults could lay their eggs. Insects returned in greater numbers, and many other animals also came back as the wetlands expanded across the valley. Was the speed of the recovery. Within only a few years, Bridge Creek looked very different from the deeply cut channel people remembered. The restoration team had not rebuilt the river with machines. They had simply created the conditions that allowed nature to finish the job itself. People who had doubted the experiment now saw the results with their own eyes. Had never been the workers holding wooden posts. They had been the beavers waiting for the right moment to begin again. So what first looked like a small success beside one quiet creek soon attracted the attention of river restoration experts across North America and far beyond. Worldwide restoration lessons. Scientists, land managers, and restoration teams wanted to know why such a simple idea had worked so well. Many expected expensive machines to solve the damaged rivers. They saw nature respond after only a small helping hand. That result started changing the way many people thought about restoring streams and wetlands. The lesson reached far beyond one creek in eastern Oregon. More restoration projects across North America began using beaver dam analogs, often called BDAs. Build small, temporary structures that slow the water and create better conditions for beavers to continue the work themselves. The goal was never to replace nature. The goal was to help natural processes return. Traditional river restoration often depends on heavy equipment. Many projects also need regular repairs because floods and changing weather can damage human-made structures. Beaver dams work differently. They change as rivers change. Beavers repair them every day, making them stronger whenever flowing water creates new openings. And that natural repair system became one of the biggest advantages. Researchers also discovered that healthy beaver wetlands helped rivers survive difficult weather. Stored groundwater kept streams flowing for much longer. Instead of losing water quickly, the landscape held it like a natural reserve. Wildlife benefited at the same time. Wetlands created safe places for fish. Native plants returned as groundwater rose closer to the surface. Healthy vegetation protected riverbanks from erosion and created cooler conditions along the water, until entire ecosystems became stronger together instead of depending on a single solution. The idea gained attention outside North America as well. One remarkable example came from the Czech Republic. Beavers built natural dams in places where restoration work had already been planned. Their work helped create wetlands without the need for costly construction. Reports showed that the animals saved taxpayers more than $1 million simply by doing what they had always done naturally. The story reminded many people that wildlife can sometimes solve problems faster and more cheaply than machines. That successful restoration does not always begin with controlling every part of nature. Sometimes the better choice is creating the right conditions and allowing natural systems to recover on their own. People did not replace the beavers. They simply gave them another chance to do the job they had perfected over thousands of years. Perhaps the greatest discovery was not what people built, but what they finally learned to stop controlling. Working with nature. Bridge Creek still flows through the high desert of eastern Oregon, but its story no longer speaks about a river in decline. The change did not come from massive walls of concrete or powerful machines. It began with a decision to give the river a chance to recover in its own way. And the first step was surprisingly simple. The workers placed a few wooden structures in the stream, yet they never expected to finish the job themselves. The real builders arrived on their own. They did not follow instructions or construction plans. Now the river had one final lesson to teach. People believed they had to control every part of nature to repair damaged land. Sometimes the best solution is not replacing natural systems, but helping them return. A small action can allow rivers, plants, animals, and wetlands to rebuild themselves in ways that people alone never could. Healthy wetlands now store more water beneath the ground, helping streams stay alive during dry seasons. Slower water also reduces the force of floods after heavy rain. Cooler streams create better homes for fish as the landscape becomes healthier. One successful change supports another until the whole ecosystem grows stronger together. This story also offers an important lesson for a changing climate. Many places around the world now face longer droughts, stronger floods, and rising temperatures. Expensive technology will continue to play an important role, but nature already holds many answers. When healthy ecosystems return, they often protect themselves while helping nearby communities. Bridge Creek reminds us that progress does not always mean building something bigger. Sometimes it means understanding what once worked. The river did not recover because people controlled every detail. They stepped back at the right moment and allowed nature to finish what it had started. That is the greatest lesson of all. The strongest solutions are not always the most expensive. They have been quietly waiting beside us all along. A few wooden posts gave nature an opportunity, yet the beavers transformed that opportunity into a living, thriving landscape. Bridge Creek stands today as a reminder that when people choose cooperation over control, even a dying river can find its way back to life. In the end, this story reminds us that nature often heals best when we choose to work with it, not against it. And now, it's your turn. What surprised you the most about this story of how 76 fake beaver dams helped bring Bridge Creek back to life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you want more incredible mysteries, discoveries, and true stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.